Toby, but hopefully it points out to the way we think about mental health in cancer psychological care being more about adaptation and processing traumatic experiences that will naturally bring distress, being very much within normal, within part of kind of what is normal, and certainly not putting them as a sort of problem. Of course, that doesn't mean you don't need to do things to support and help people through that, but it also means you don't necessarily need to use a diagnostic terminology of illness or disorder in order to do that.
And you're saying, like, wonderfully putting in the fact of, the normal kind of thing of it being a normal part of our life. But, like, one of the things that we're here to talk about is, like, the fact that men particularly, like, might see it as a taboo subject, and wondering why do you think that might be? Why do you think that is?
You probably need a whole range of disciplines to kind of approach that, and sociologists might say some things and historian different things, and I think kind of the idea again of sort of what I suppose we might sort of naturally be experiencing in our culture is the idea of masculinity as kind of sort of being protective of others, sort of strong and capable, and fundamentally when you're so vulnerable and kind of not really able to protect others and you need protection yourself, it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. It kind of goes against the script. The social script, but also the internal script that we have ourselves. It's a terribly vulnerable position to have cancer, and to therefore share that vulnerability is a difficult thing, right? So it goes, not only are you feeling vulnerable, but it goes against the script that you need to be providing for others, that you need to be achieving, that you need to be strong, that you need to be in a certain kind of position of sort of powerfulness, and instead you're in a position of powerlessness. So it really goes against the script, and I can imagine why it's very, very hard to accept that you are in that position, and then naming it and sort of telling others about it, extra hard. So, I think, however, that is massively, massively different these days. I think, us being here is kind of an extension of a lot of things, So I think our ideas of masculinity and, what men should do or could do has expanded thanks to women.
Thank you. And God will, I want to go to you next to think back to pre-2017, because you were diagnosed in 2017, and I just want to hear a little bit about what was your mental health like before you had cancer, and did you think about mental health before cancer?
Before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was very uplifting, high hopes, had a lot of energy. I was more, I can't say more myself now. I was happier with myself then than I am now, in the sense of nothing could do me wrong. Anything that didn't go my way, I thought it's okay, I can live for the next day. But then after being told that I was diagnosed with cancer, that's when everything just went downhill. And funny enough, before I was even diagnosed with cancer, I was hit a week or two beforehand. With the way my health was deteriorating, I realized that something is wrong and it was eating me up slowly. First I thought it would be okay, it's nothing, I just need good doctors, but the more I started realizing they couldn't find nothing, the more it started to scare me, and the more I'm thinking my life is actually at risk. So when I was told I was diagnosed with cancer, it wasn't me being told what affected me the most. It was the people around me that was affected that hurt me the most. Because now I'm seeing them break down, and that's breaking me even more. I can take it on my own, but me seeing my loved ones being hurt by something that may as well kill me, not them, it's hurting me more, because that's killing me inside. Seeing my mum cry, seeing my dad turn away, but I know he's upset. My brother's all upset. Like, all of those things, I'm very family oriented, so orientated. So me seeing all of that put me down on a hill where I thought I got to put a fake face on. No matter what, I got to be smiling, knowing I'm in pain. When I come over, they make jokes, all this other stuff, but then when it's time for them to go, I'll let my mom know I'm in pain. Tell them they need to go. Because any other time, I'll just be in my own corner. Like, it's hard to explain. You wouldn't really feel it or understand your mental health until after. I would say only after I left the hospital is when I realized, yes, I'm actually going through something and I need to understand what it is, because now people around me are starting to recognize that Goddo is not being himself no more. Like, yes, I'm free, I'm finally out the birdcage, so I'm out of hospital, diagnosed, you're gone, everything all clear, you had your surgery, you're good to go. I'm out, I'm living my life, but at the same time, something's not right. I'm not feeling like I'm myself no more. And that's when it's like you miss a part of yourself, basically. And that's where it hurts you the most. And once you realize that, that's when, again, you will always need the people around you to support you. But again, how can you do that if you don't speak up?
And did you find that like, what was the thing that made you go, actually, I need to speak up, I need to be open with those around me?
I would say it was at a point where I realized that I'm doing no good to myself. And again, as I told you earlier before, that I have kids, so me hearing my son call for me and me knowing I'm not at the best health that I could or should have been is what damaged me a lot more. And I thought, Goddo, now you need to, again, man up and take your role as a father. But again, I can't be doing that if Superman is broken. That don't make sense. You're meant to be the hero to your child, and I wasn't that. On top of that, I was losing a lot of friends, so people that I did want to speak to, I couldn't really talk to. I wouldn't tell my mum about how I felt because I don't want her being hurt by it. So it was a thing, going around it was me getting myself together to accept what's happened instead of looking back in regret, because I look back at it as it's my fault that I had cancer. That it's my fault that's happened to me. Again, no one chooses to become ill. And through the process with accepting life, I need to accept that I had cancer, that it's not a part of me, but it is me within my journey. It's one stage of my life that I've gone through, I went through, I've beat it, and now I'm here. But the reason why I would say it's more, I'll say this, the present is so here, it's so near and close to me, because every surgery I have will always be leading up to the reason of me having cancer. After how many years of me having been diagnosed, like 5 years ago, I'm still receiving treatment due to the fragments of the scar tissues still being inside of me. All of these things will still be there and I have to face it. But now is the thing, with the loved ones I have now, I face it in a sense of, we're gonna get through this, it's okay. Where in the past, I would just think, when's it gonna be over with? If you're gonna take me now. Because again, it's hard to have hope where you keep being backtracked and just put down at every bad news you hear. But sometimes the bad news is just things you need to hear.
Thank you, Godwill. And Jim, I wanted to go to you because I wonder if you've seen parallels in your experience to Godwill's there as well. And I guess maybe what about the change in your mental health from pre-cancer, pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis, and also maybe some bits in there of like how what made you aware that things have changed.
So I definitely think there are parallels in that. I think probably before I had cancer, very similar to lots of people in their 20s, sort of finding their feet, finding themselves, having ups and downs, sort of generally pretty normal. And once I was diagnosed, I just felt like I got my head down. That, I was given tasks to do. You have to turn up to this appointment. You have a scan. You've just got one thing after the next. It's quite structured, and you're focusing on that. You're like, right, okay. And I wanted to make sure that I was the one who told all of my friends and all of my family, because I didn't want them to have to say that news to someone else. So I was like, right, I'm going to tell this person, I'm going to do that. And it was all very structured, and sort of fortunately for me, there was a process, and there was a very high cure rate in testicular cancer. So it was almost like, if I do what I'm told, everything will most likely be fine at the end of this. And it's probably going to be horrible, but just get your head down and get through it. And, that 6 months was, it was the biggest challenge that I've ever had. And when you get out of that, you're riding this like absolutely massive wave of, I'm healthy again. I get a chance to have my life back, and you're on this massive high. And I'd say I was probably on that high for like a year or 2 years, and then I remember I think it was my 2-year follow-up, and I remember just sort of the day before being like, oh my God, all of this is what just happened, all of this is that's happened to me, and I haven't actually focused on any of how I feel about it emotionally. Physically, I'm as fine as I can be. I'm healthy. My blood tests are coming back. My scans are coming back good. But I hadn't actually spent or really considered throughout the process that I might not be okay with everything emotionally. And I think it's a difficult one, and I think that one thing that Alex said that's quite interesting is about the script. And I think that part of that is to do with men, but part of it's to do with the script of the rhetoric of cancer. Everyone kept telling me I was brave. Everyone kept telling me that I was a hero. And you're like, I'm not a hero. I'm just a 25-year-old man, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I've just got to get on with it and do it, and I think probably in the same way that you're like, well, you perhaps don't want to burden people, like Godwill was saying, you don't want to burden people with stuff. So you're like, well, I'm fine, I can get through it. And actually, it took me a while afterwards to sort of realize, well, there's been a lot of physical healing that's happened, but really there needs to be some emotional healing as well. And that was really sort of a big turning point for me. It was about 2 years after I went to remission. And that's when I started looking for emotional support. So that's when I started going to the specialist support group that I go to. That's when I found Trekstock, which has been just an absolute, it's been a breath of fresh air. Because I think that during treatment, you don't meet people who are similar to you, because I was just above the threshold for being in sort of young people's wards and stuff like that. And actually, I was having my chemo with people who were 40 years older than me. And no one, I get it, no one really wants to talk when they're having chemo anyway. But, you're surrounded with people who you just have nothing in common with. And it wasn't until that sort of point when you actually meet someone who's your own age and you're like, wow, okay, I get it. And we can have a chat. And actually, I'm not alone. I've got my experience, other people have got their experiences, they're similar, there's parallels to them, and you're like, okay, this sort of seems a bit more manageable.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, Jim, of like, I also, like, I kind of rejected it all for about 3 years, was just like, yeah, that's done, let's put it away, I want to get back on with my life now. And it was only after that, like, kind of long period of, like, very much that line of, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay, things that we keep like recycling, bringing out and stuff, and then realizing, well, actually, maybe I'm not, and maybe that's okay that I'm not okay. And starting to kind of unpick that was when I met Trekstock and started to work out that there were other people that had gone through this. Because, yeah, similarly, I was just above the age to meet other people in like a TH Cancer Trust ward or something like that. And one of the things I got to do through Trekstock was the Renew program, which I think I was in one of the early stages of it. And Amber, I'm going to bring you in here to talk about that. Maybe first you could explain what the Renew program is, and And we've been talking a little bit about the physical and the emotional connection there of what we know now about how physical exercise can help as well when we're struggling with our mental health.
So the Renew program is put in place from an exercise perspective is to kind of get people moving, get people to understand their body a little bit better, especially if we kind of rewind it back to like during treatment. So during treatment, your body's going through this massive change, and you kind of need to understand it as it goes through the change, so you can take control. Get that control back, and then so after treatment, you kind of, I think someone explained to me one time when they came out of treatment as if they were put in a washing machine, span around, and then they just came out, and it's like, well, here you go, off you go, you're finished now. We've treated you, and you've left with this new body that has been through a whirlwind of you just listening and been told what to do and meeting appointments and all these different kind of things. So the Renew program is kind of there to say, look, let's go back to the start. Let's rebuild your new body, and let's kind of understand it together. And you're not doing it alone. You've got professionals next to you that understand, and like you guys have been discussing, there's people that are in the same position as you that are understanding at the same time. So you can kind of go through it together.
And with that, have you seen people who have been coming through this program? I mean, I can say for myself, I did it and it greatly positively affected my mental health. But have you seen that through the work you've been doing?
Yes, definitely. Because an example would be for an 8-week program. Week 1 is very light, getting to know people, understanding, the basics of functional movements, which not many people understand. When we talk about exercise, it's not about, doing burpees and all these things that we see on the, the television or on the internet. It's most exercises are functional movements. They just have fancy names on them. And when I say functional, it's more the stuff that we do every day. Things like getting up and sitting down is labeled a squat. Doing it the right way is really functional. Picking up bags of shopping and moving them from one place to another could be a bicep curl. So what we do at Renew is we kind of take the names out of it, the fancy names, and we call them for what they are, and then they become more relatable then for each individual that goes through the program. But as that happens, they start to understand their body a little bit more, and then I'd say around, and this is not for everyone, but around week 6 is when you really see a corner turn, when they're doing the warm-ups, for example, and they're going straight into the next exercise because they know it, they're ready for it, and it's like, oh, now we're making progress, and smiles come now, and people are just communicating with each other. And then after it, they want to do some more, and they start to think about, well, what can I do to keep this going? What other programs are in place, because now I'm more confident with my body to move forward.
Yeah, and I remember, Ambo, that for me there was a big thing of after treatment. Yeah, my body had changed a lot, and for me there was I was a runner beforehand, and I really wanted to get back running, and the patience it was going to take. Like there's that, if anything, that was really stressful. But when kind of getting back to that, actually knowing that running is a really big part of supporting my mental health, and going actually to overcome those moments, which is why the Renew program was great, to kind of get that sense of building up a bit of strength, and also a little bit of going, oh, actually somebody's holding my hand to support me to kind of go through those stages. I guess I was going to come back to you, Alex, to ask about, because obviously that we talked a little bit about moments of awareness, and us being slightly aware of these things that are going on for us, but there are awareness comes because of maybe seeing some symptoms, seeing some things that are popping up for us which we might not be able to understand. And I wondered, what would be the ones that, if people are listening to this, they should be looking out for, if they're like, oh, actually this might be something that's going on for me?
Oh, goodness.
I know it's a big question, I'm so sorry.
Indeed, and we had a couple of really good points. One was that actually in some ways the kind of the meaning or the impact of this kind of took a while to arise. It sort of came at a different time. The other one was that kind of there was another sense of mission to your resolve to take it all on board so it wouldn't kind of upset your family. So you're very, very motivated not to be upset because that would upset others and that was more important to you. So you were doing what was most important at the same time as you were kind of perhaps, you know, suffering a bit more in a more lonely way. But that was the important bit. And you were like, okay, I'm going to protect them. So in that sense, you can see here, there's no kind of clear, you know, there's no kind of clear, straightforward bit. You know, you can definitely tell when we're really at that far end of things and people are really, really not functioning very well at all, right? You know, so their thoughts and feelings are so rigid and overwhelming that their functioning goes astray, right? They can't kind of achieve what they, you know, want to achieve. But it's much more subtle when, you know, the sort of these examples where you can sort of function and do the things you function, but you're kind of sort of maybe hurt and disoriented in a way that's not easy to, you know, not easy to pin down. And I'm afraid it's gonna be really tricky for everybody to figure that out. I think, you know, the insight on that is one thing, but also who do you tell who can kind of recognize that, and that person, do they then have access to the sort of solutions or sort of services or processes that might actually help you? So one of the kind of key things we know, I suppose, is that people will not identify problems unless they know that there might be something there for them. So I guess to come around and flip it, the other side is maybe we can't expect people to be aware and present problems. What we need to be presenting to them is that kind of idea of what are the options and support and resources, so that they might sort of then see that as a possibility and therefore kind of go backwards, kind of go, well, would that be good for me? And therefore identify that. It's a bit of a roundabout way, isn't it? It's kind of very different to, you know, medicine, right? You have a symptom, you go to the doctor knows what to do. This is the totally wrong way around. It's kind of like you have to start to, you know, if you identify those problems, great, but as we saw, it's not that straightforward.
Yeah. And well, Jim, can I go to you then to kind of ask about, were the things that you've started to do because you've gone, actually, I want to look at ways to support my own mental health, or maybe friends as well that have suggested things to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest one was sort of seeking some talking therapy support. So I spoke to my oncology team, and I think by the time I'd spoken to them, it was too late to get some sort of cancer-specific support, but they suggested that I self-refer to talking therapy with my local GP, and I found that really beneficial to my mental health, both to talk about cancer, but also talk about the other stuff that's connected to it, because it is all connected, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, your social life, whether it's your relationships, you know, all of that is all interlinked. And I think that and also being able to talk to other people who have had similar experiences are the things that have really helped me the most, in terms of, you know, feeling positive, in terms of feeling like I'm going to a better place with my mental health.
And God will, for you, what are the things that you've looked out for that have been able to help you with your own mental health as well?
Well, one thing that you need to understand is within my own culture, having mental health issues or having any mental problem in general, feeling down, that's all abnormal. It's either you're good to go, you get up, it's okay. There's no how you feeling. We don't really speak about our feelings in that type of sense. Like, it's not something that's actually spoken about. So for someone now to step out of that and say, I'm feeling this type of way, and say, what do you mean? How? it's not something that's actually spoken about. Like if I talk to my father, I'm not going to be talking to him about how I'm feeling, just tell him how my day's going and whatnot. It's only when I would say 2020 is when we now started to be a bit more open up with how we're actually feeling towards things. Again, you have to make I feel like personally, you have to make a certain step. But it's hard because, as you said earlier on, the tools ain't there for everyone. No one knows what's available and what's not available. So it's like, as much as you can want help, you don't know where to look for. You don't know who you can ask to seek for certain advice, who you can ask to speak for certain help. Because again, you can only do so much when you speak to a family member. This is why certain therapists, when you go to certain therapy session, they go well because you're speaking to someone you don't know. So they don't know your personal life. Whatever you tell them is what they take from you, and they help you from what you tell them. For someone that knows you, they'll be like, but this isn't you. They're telling you that it isn't you, and you're letting them know how you feel. So it's like it's hard for them to accept the fact that this is the new you, because they want you to remain the person you were before. And them seeing this drastic change, is it's just bizarre to them. Because again, from you being someone so high up to someone that's always doubting themselves, that makes no sense. For someone that always can walk out thinking they're the best, to someone who's now a bit insecure about how they're looking, how they're dressed, whether their clothes fit them or not, that's confusing. Like, all of these things take part in so many situations. It's like, you gotta really learn yourself before you're able to give yourself to others. That's the best way I can put it. I had to learn with myself about who I am. Again, I put it this way, there's me, myself, and I. Me was in 2017, before all of this. Myself was me going through the treatment. And me, as I am now, is me understanding the process of being who I need to be. Again, I'm still a bit young, so hopefully by the time I'm 30, I got all of it together, but... I'm sorry, that was loud. So, it's just... There's a step, there's a process. You learn, it's a journey in life.
It's terrific. Hey, Toby, I don't mind if I interject, but if I might, but you mentioned something before was really, really important. I think that there is a particular element of kind of getting cancer when you're young that is sort of really particularly important to mention, is that because it is unusual, yeah? It's not part of the script, and it also comes at a time when, again, forming identity, sort of relationships, distancing yourself, kind of establishing yourself, are all getting established. So it's so much more fundamentally disruptive, yeah? So we kind of call that a biographical disruption. Like, it doesn't happen to people at that age. So serious illness of this magnitude is relatively uncommon, right? So very, very few, if anybody around you, will have an experience like that, right? Which is a good thing, generally, for humanity. But obviously, for any single individual, it's very isolating, right? Extremely isolating. So the fact you then afterwards carry a body that's sort of been through the war, that has all these kind of things, that are associated with old age, this pain, this ache, this kind of gap, this hospital, this medication, you're carrying that. So gone is the kind of, endless optimism and kind of open horizons and kind of bouncing out of bed of youth, and you kind of hit middle age pretty quick, So there's a real, it's important to just kind of note that in the context of being young, particularly young as a man, thinking, what do I need to achieve? How do I need to establish myself, right? I'm sure it's the same for, in similar and different ways for women, but that is when we know it's well established that it's people who have cancer when they're young much more distressed, take much longer to adapt.
Because you're looking for identity, you're trying to find out who you are, and you doing it at a age where it's peak, where you're going out to discover yourself. To now be in a bed watching people discovering themselves, it's like it's not a thing where you're jealous of them, but you envy their lifestyle now, because you're like, I could have been there, but I'm here. And then every morning you're waking up to the dinner lady, breakfast, all of this stuff, his medication, all the time. But then you have all these people posting, going out, sharing, like enjoying their life, sharing their story. And this is where before I said, that's why I like app is so useful. Because now if someone is in bed, they can have a community where they can just post, oh, I'm here taking this treatment, it's so long, da, da, da. They can communicate and laugh about it, because at the end of the day, there's laughter, that you can laugh about these type of stuff. But when you're by yourself, you're not laughing about it, you will take it too seriously. Because now at the end of the day, it's all sensitive. Now you can't be who you want to be. Like one moment, I can be sure that you had a love for something before, then now you kind of lost touching because you're feeling like, I can't really do it no more. I'm not fit enough to do it no more. I used to love playing football just for the fact of playing it. I'm not saying I'm a footballer, but just for the fact of playing it. Now I'll run out of breath in 2 seconds. Now I'm gaining and losing weight constantly. After every surgery, I'm losing weight. I can go up just to lose it again, go up just to lose it again. Like that's something that's a constant battle that you need to always face. And now with, I would say, finding yourself, this is why I say you have to love yourself, regardless. Because once you love yourself, you can find yourself. And that's when you can discover, you know what, this is who I'm meant to be. Of course, you had that little fantasy of thinking, I could be this person. But again, once you get hit with that rock, understand the best way to fight it is getting back up.
I just want to touch in on a point there from Will about like the body changes particularly, and I think as men, like there is sometimes I definitely had a feeling that talking about my body image and thinking about the way that I looked was like something that I shouldn't really be worrying about as much as a woman might as well, particularly because of like losing your hair and things like that, and that being like. And actually the body changes particularly. And I wonder if I go to you at first, Ambo, just to talk about like the things that you've seen about when like the effects of the body changes and things like that on mental health, and seeing that. I'm sure you've seen it in the work you do with Renew, but also away from that as well.
Yeah, so in terms of the way the body was before, you mean? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I mean, and you touched on it earlier when you were talking about you were running previously. So there's a lot of that of saying I was this, you know, and then it's gone away. So then I need to kind of refine that again. But it's a little bit of an understanding of you do have to start again a little bit, or even as close to the beginning as possible. And the body changes massively. It changes anyway. Regardless, as we get older, as we get fitter, as we get stronger, as we get weaker, and all different things. So, again, that understanding of how your body's working, and then being open. I think God will said it as well, just being open to new things and a new me. So I think me, myself, and I was a great terminology that was used. I don't think I've ever heard it put that way before, but you know, the I part of this is who I am now, is a good way of looking at things in terms of now, this new body that I've learned to cope with, and I can develop it. A lot of people on Renew look at it as a fresh canvas. They kind of look at the positive sides of it. Now I can start again. And I don't have to be, in your case, Toby, a runner. I'm not just a runner. I can be something else now. I can literally, you know, go back to the drawing board and find something new that's really interesting. And again, just to touch on the Renew, the community that surrounds it, you're able to open yourself up to new things that you didn't know you could do before. Also, why don't I try and do a new thing, whether it's squash, whether it's just going for walks, or whether it's, you know, it is running something brand new, because it's a fresh start.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think that we've touched on it a little bit as well about how like the effects on the body and how those can affect your mental health, and how we can look at that is also a way that we can, like, as I say, running for me is one of the things I do to really kind of, it's a practical example of the things I do to support my own mental health, but it's also was to alleviate that feeling as well of the impacts of the cancer and the treatment, and to find again a little bit about who I am now, which I think is a really important part of that. And I guess I quite like to go back to these kind of things as well, of like things that we do now as well to support our own mental health, and examples of that. And I guess, Jim, can I go to you first to see, like, so I do running. I think that is one of the things I do. I think I do a little bit of yoga and stuff as well to try and help my own mental health. And what are the things that you do, like, for yourself?
So I would probably say the biggest thing is I'm not huge into exercise. I haven't hugely ever been into exercise, but I think mostly it's just being kind to yourself. It's like not beating yourself up too much, you know. And I think that is the best thing for your mental health, whether it's a treat during the day, you know, even if it's, you know, ultimately not that good for you, or whether it's, you know, going out and seeing some friends or doing something that you love and finding the joy. I think that is really the best thing for you, whether that's with your mates, whether that's with your family. You know, it's carving out those little moments that give you that happiness, that help, you know, because things always move, don't they? They move from happy to sad, and that's, you know, it can't always be in a straight line, because that's just not the way that the world works. And you're going to have points when you're not feeling great. You're going to have points when you might feel sad. And actually, you know, what makes those bearable, or what makes you get through those, is having those little moments of joy or happiness. So it's I think, like, I went through a phase where I was like trying to find a hobby. And I was like, well, maybe it's a hobby that will make me. And I spoke to someone, and it was really helpful. I had this peer-to-peer session with someone, and they were talking about how they got into triathlons, and how they got, you know, and they were running Ironmans every other week. And I was like, wow, you're amazing. And then I was like, a couple of months later, I was like, that's great, and I'm really glad that you're doing that, but it's really not me, and I'm not actually sure whether that would make me happy. And I think that for me, it's all about social contact. It's all about, you know, seeing the people that I love and spending time with the people that I love, and making room for that in my life. And really, that's the thing that I think is the most positive the most beneficial thing on my mental health.
Thank you. That's, like those day-to-day connections with people, and particularly, I think, as we think about the world that we've been living in for the last couple of years, and the fact that I'm here, Ambo is on that screen as well, that different ways of connecting with people as well. Alex, what about you? What are the things that you do to support your own mental health?
Oh my God. Well, for the first time in sort of many decades, well, not many decades, but at least one. Last 2 weeks, the family had gone away, so I was kind of at home alone. Total existential crisis, I'm telling you, people. He was like, "What do I do? Like, I can't cook for one. What do I do when I'm alone? Oh God." I kind of sort of remembered that you can do things that are impromptu. I didn't know that. You can stop working, you know, that's a good tip, and that you can do things that are impromptu. So the idea that often what worked for me, and certainly, you know, what worked has worked through tough times, and, you know, I'd echo that, Jim, is that you'd have something that's sort of social and valuable to you, that is going to happen next week or the week after, and you reach to that bit and you refuel a little bit and you go to the next bit. And so, you know, I think a sense of kind of having something on your plan, having something on your plate, something that you earnestly sort of really want to make time for. I think the other bit is actually not getting swallowed up by kind of how many things you can do, you know, and actually leaving time for that. I'm happy to say I have resolved that. The family has come back. I've started to kind of cook and clean for 4, so, you know, that does it. You know, a sense of kind of, you know, achievement and sort of, you know, being productive for others and sort of helping others, as you say. You know, I think that's kind of, you know, very fulfilling when you can have that. It's not the only way, but there I go.
Yeah. It's good. I'm glad they've come back. I'm glad they've come back
Yeah.
do that.
There was a chance there. It was a 50-50.
Yeah.
They're like, so nice here. Why do we come back?
And God will, Oti, I know you've already mentioned about your kids as well. I'm sure they're part of support your mental health as well and things. And what other things do you do?
I play a game.
Yeah.
I play a game. Sometimes I may play some music, make music. Sometimes, of recent, I'm trying to go out a lot more. I didn't really do that a lot, but yeah, my girlfriend introduced me to doing that. So I'm trying to go out a lot more, see more restaurants. Just be more active. I was more of a homebody, but now I'm being more active. Go karting. I really enjoy doing that. I'm trying to do golf, there's bowling. I hate playing her at that, but if you lose, you lose. There's a lot of activities I want to do that I never did before in my younger days, if you want to say that. Yeah, that's really about it.
That's great. Thank you, God will. Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, you might lose a couple, but hey, it's fine. You're out. It's only if you're only losing to your girlfriend, it's fine. If your kids are beating you, because I know your kids are quite young.
Oh no, my kids. You see them? They're one with a lot of energy. I'm starting to do a lot of football with my son. I'm trying to get him into football. I want to get him into boxing even. I'll be honest with you. But he's at the age where I want to put some discipline inside of him. Getting some boxing, maybe some taekwondo, something that I wish I did when I was younger. I don't want to force it on him because I wanted to do it, but kids are there for that. So I wanted to do certain activities that I wish I did for myself when I was younger. And as for my daughter, I can't lie, she does whatever she wants to do. I'm too soft with her. Whatever she wants to do, she gets it. She won't say she's getting it. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Thank you, God will. Sorry, I missed the mute button that time for the cough. I apologise. Really loudly. Before we're going to open up to some questions on the floor, so if there's any questions on the floor, we're going to come to you. I just want to circle back to a question that has come in from online as well, and and maybe I can go to you first, Jim, with this. And it's really talking about like if there's any practical examples about like how you might start a conversation with friends or family, like icebreaker questions or things that you've found like that when you're like, actually I do want to speak to somebody, what you've done in the past. I wondered if you could give an example for us.
So that's a really good question. I think for me, when I realized that it was that I wanted to go speak to someone, I think because I was still going to a follow-up clinic, that was my first port of call. I've always been quite good at talking to friends and family about the experience that I've had, about physically what's happened. So about my surgery, or about chemo, or about something that is really factual. I think what I've had to learn to do is speak about how I feel about it, rather than just about the fact. And that's probably a little bit tougher, and it's going to be different for everyone, and it partly depends on who you're talking to as well, because I think that sometimes if you're talking to your parents, the way that you talk might be slightly different to the way that you talk to friends. And, again, it's sort of, what's interesting is it can partly comes back to this sort of, this gender thing, really, where, I have been able to talk to my friends about it, and they've all been really good. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I might have learned about, is that actually you can bring up these conversations with people, and you can have conversations with other men about feelings, about how you're feeling about something, and believe it or not, they've also got feelings as well. But I think, and that's why today is so important, because no one teaches us how to talk about how we feel. We go to school, we learn maths, English, science, but no one actually teaches you, firstly, to be observant of how you're feeling, but secondly, how to tell someone about it. And I think, in the past I've sort of done talking therapy, and I found that really useful, because if without it, the only really way that you learn to talk about your emotions is through the people who surround you. And actually, if no one is you're in a group of friends where it's all guys and they don't really talk about that kind of stuff, then, no one's ever going to talk about that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think, sort of, I found, when I did talk about that kind of things, it was received very well. There was, there wasn't that sort of, perhaps, I felt a bit nervous, like, how is this going to go down? How is it going to be received? And actually, generally, I found that it was very positive. Probably even more positive talking to my friends, than I had expected.
Thank you. Yeah, like I had very similar feelings as well when, like, the surprise actually I get sometimes of talking to guy friends and particularly friends. I go, no, they won't want to talk about their feelings, and then the surprise of going, well, actually, when you bring it up, that there is something that they're open to. Maybe that's a little bit of us believing in our friends a little bit more as well. I mean, God, Will, you've already spoken a little bit about the kind of the difficulty as well at starting that conversation, like in your family and maybe with friends as well. And I guess, what would you say as well to somebody about if they're wanting to start a conversation with family or friends?
I feel like it comes down to how you would receive whatever they say to you, because one thing I notice is that I can't be upset with them if they don't respond the way I want them to respond. Like with some of my friends, they will never be direct with talk to me about the situation, but just ask me, how's your health? Yeah, I'm good. Oh, okay, cool. Now they'll move on from it. They don't want to know themselves about too much information, not because they don't want to talk to me about it, because they just want to know if I'm okay. If there's anything else, I could speak to them more and be like, not really, basically this is going on. I could do that. But I know that they have fear for me. So they're scared themselves to ask certain situations or certain questions. And the more time goes on, the more they get comfortable. Oh, how's the health? How's the doctor's appointment? Did you go? What happened? And that's where the door opens, because the more you see each other, the layers are breaking and breaking. Now you speak about your appointments, what the appointments were about, the results, what's happening next, how your body's feeling, etc., etc. And that's where it gets down to, so how are you feeling about it? Because now it goes down to you, what are you thinking about it? And that's when the conversation gets deeper and deeper. I feel like when it comes to talking to family and friends, it's layers. The way I moved on about it is layers. Like sometimes you being unaware of it, you will give certain hints that you want to talk about it. You're not aware of it, but you'll be like, I'm really feeling like this, or you'll make certain gestures when someone's looking at you like, what are you doing? What's going on? But you say nothing, so they brush it off. But if they notice it, more importantly, if you notice it, that's when you can understand, okay, you know what, when it happens again and do ask me what's going on, just give a little piece, plant the seed. Because at the end of the day, the flower will grow, but plant the seed first. Let them understand this is what's going on, but slowly. When you're ready is when you can fully express yourself. But as you're talking, just let it be little small stuff. I'm feeling a bit down, but you know what, it's all right. Oh, but why? Talk to me. You know what, you should do this. They give you small gestures, small advice of what you can do. Just a little conversation, even though it wasn't what you wanted to talk about, it's something there, you know. Or make you feel a type of way. At least they care. So the next time you do go back, how you feeling? I'm not gonna lie to you. You know, I've been thinking a lot of X, Y, and Z. And that's where the conversation starts rolling. It happens again and again and again and again. Like, as I stated earlier, I was able to talk to my mum and etc. about what I was going through, because again, they're not really understanding. But once my mum was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, I couldn't approach her. Not because I didn't want to, but I had the fear of not knowing, of having the unknown being there, because it's like, how do you have it now if I already had it? It's fine, it shouldn't be here no more. I don't want to hear it, it shouldn't be in my family, I didn't want that. So I'm now pushing myself away from my mum. As much as I'm close to her, I'm pushing it away because now I'm scared of the whole situation. But due to her having that experience, she now has the door open to understand exactly how I feel. So now she's able to express it to everyone else around me to say, if God is going through this, understand it's because of this. So it comes down to who you go to, how it's organized, and who can speak to who to to make people understand you as a person. Like as you stated before, you can talk to your friends about it like very easily, and, and that's great. I wish I could do that. I can only talk to certain family members about it, barely my friends, because again, I know they're scared for me and I don't want to scare them. Although I may be good now, just the fear in their mind is what will put them down. Because even I remember before, my high school friend would say to me, God, out of all people to have it, I never thought it'd be you. God, what, you? Are you being for real? Like all of these things, like, don't worry, man, it's good, it's good, it's good. Inside, I'm dying, thinking, yeah, me, right? But it is what it is. The more you go past it, break down the layer, plant the seed, end of the day, it'll blossom, and you're able to speak freely with your friends and family, you know? But yeah, that's all.
Yeah, thank God, Will. I think you really hit on a really interesting point there about like this kind of the fact it does take time as well. It like, and particularly in doing it in a way which is like well received by everybody in a way that like, oh, you haven't just got to the point where you suddenly need to burst. And maybe like sometimes obviously it can manifest in ways of, we can manifest in anger and stuff particularly. Like I think that's something that can happen if you've got something pent up inside you and things, and or it can be the other way where you get kind of withdrawn as well. And maybe actually what we're seeing, what you're suggesting there, Gobble, is that this slow way of sharing, particularly when you know that people might not be ready to receive things, actually that's the thing that shifts the conversation. Yeah. And if we're all starting to have these small conversations, if we're all starting to be a little bit more aware, a little bit more open to talking about mental health, maybe that starts to shift that conversation a little bit more.
Yeah, because one thing I can say is last year, March, when I had my surgery, I came out of the hospital so angry that I wasn't aware that I was angry. The way I'll be speaking to everyone would be so rude and so disrespectful. And understand, I'm bedbound, so they all help me, but I'm still being disrespectful. And certain people didn't even understand. And I had to come out of that and apologize, knowing my wrongdoing. But again, like my brother would say to people, it happens. When God comes out of surgery, he's not angry at you, he's angry at himself. Because again, just that experience will set you back in the sense of you just feeling so much emotion. You're so unaware that you're behaving a certain way. But the second you have that clarity, like the sense of, okay, I snapped out of it, I'm good. You look back and understand that how much it is you that's going through it, people around you are also going through it. So it is a bit of a hard situation, like a double-edged sword. Like, how much you want them to be aware of you, you got to be aware of them, because not everyone's ready to hear the hard truth or take what you give. So it does vary. Like, I will say, sometimes take ownership and sometimes understand people ain't ready yet.
Yeah.
I wondered, Alex, if we can go to you now just to talk as well, I guess, about like if when are there moments or maybe that we're seeing things that might need to progress beyond just family and friends as well, or if people are seeing people and going, actually, I think somebody else might be good to support them, or they might need to have extra support.
Yeah. And I'll sort of jump to that point, but just to add a couple of points. I mean, often, we mentioned it, that often people sort of are doing the talking for the benefit of somebody else. So they want somebody else to kind of change or understand them or whatever. And sometimes the painful bit is they're not going to get it. And I think you kind of mentioned that, and I suppose it's important to be sort of prepared for the idea that as much as you'd like them to get it and to be really, really open, they're just not gonna. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of painful, and there's no technique or skill that's going to do that. So kind of pick the people who might. So, you both mentioned that, kind of, sort of hone in on the people who could do. And I was speaking to a young guy the other day, and he said he was always at a party, and this girl who had her own kind of terrible adversity, sort of some kind of terrible car crash that kind of killed bits of her family, and and she was very bold, and she came right up and said, hey, like, I heard from so-and-so, you've had a a rough time. And there was a directness there, and there was a sense of it was a bit unsparing, like it was a bit bold. And they shared the same kind of sense of adversity and the fact that they weren't entirely inhabiting the world that everybody else who was partying was inhabiting. They were in a kind of an additional world that had a lot of pain and suffering and trauma in it. And he found that incredibly freeing, right? So, you know, the sort of thing that you could say, like on the app, you can kind of joke about things.
Yeah,
that if you say that to other people, they'd be like, what? You can't do that.
Exactly.
So there's a certain freedom and boldness if you can kind of connect with people who have got a set of experience of what this is really, really like. Yeah? So kind of pick people and be bold. Pick the right people and be bold. And the other thing is, I suppose, we talked about talking, but we didn't talk about listening. So kind of start by sort of modeling, do a lot of listening, right? Kind of, you know, set the scene. So, oh, tell me about you and what's up with you and how are you feeling and kind of what was that like for you? And if they're the right person, it's hopefully at some point they might kind of go back, so how about you, right? So you set the scene really by kind of modeling a lot of the things that you'd like to receive and, you know, work on your listening, work on your capacity to be curious and tuned into other people, and actually really, you know, listen as opposed to wait for a chance to kind of tell your story. And that should hopefully work out. Now, when it comes to more kind of professional sort of discussions, right, I think it is, you know, difficult, obviously, in the context of pretty much every healthcare interaction, whether it's a GP or a doctor, to unfold the complexity of the things that you might be thinking and feeling, right? It's very unlikely that those things are going to happen. So, you know, it's difficult as it is, a full conversation, you know, is going to be very hard to have. But a sort of opening is possible. And I think people will earnestly usually be, you know, in these days, very reasonably well alert to the fact that sort of psychological care and mental health care are part of cancer care. So I don't think it's going to be too hard to sort of, you know, lay something on the table and not have some sort of, I really, really hope that's the case, that you'd have some sort of response from people that say, yeah, that is an understandable reaction, there is help for that, here's options A and B and C, you know. I wouldn't expect people to be able to sort of go, like, okay, I'll sit and listen, because I think they're often the job of a doctor or a nurse or whatever. It doesn't allow them to do that as much as they'd like to. And I was at a discussion where junior doctors, sort of doctors in their last year of kind of practicing medicine, what they were saying to, you know, to us today is their biggest fear is that they're going to lose that kind of real sense of emotional response to their patients, that they're going to feel and really feel passionately about things, and they're going to get a little bit more, you know, a bit more blasé, a little bit more kind of, you know, okay. So, you know, remember that, you know, the people you talk to, sort of, when they started this job, they really wanted to talk to you about this stuff. They might have lost the time or the skill. They might have lost it along the way a little bit, but it was what motivated them to get in there. So I hope you can kind of hold that idea as, you know, if you raise something that is going to be understood, it's going to be welcome, it actually might even be a chance for them to kind of, you know, reclaim their kind of caring sides as well, and lay out some sort of choices for you. So yeah, I hope that's kind of going towards where you meant it to go, Toby.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I appreciate all three of you in the live space coping with me facilitating from afar, and Ambo as well. So we are going to throw out to the live floor to hear if there are any questions. And Jemima, who is waving the mic, I can see over there, which is great. Jemima is going to be able to come over and give a mic so we can all hear over here on the digital world. So are there any questions that anybody in the audience have for anybody in our panel or for Ambo here as well? That
Hello?
We've got the mic working.
Hi,
Okay,
Jemima,
yeah.
there.
Ah, yes.
Happy to ask a question. So, Callum here. I had a question kind of to pick up on, Alex, your last point. Almost, what about if healthcare professionals are the ones that ask the questions about mental health? Because I think often it can feel like it's something an individual's got to raise, you've got to shout when there's an issue. Is it the issue that, like, if they do ask the question, they might not actually have time to listen to the answer, which is kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, it really is. In every bit of good practice, there should be a bit where people say, so we've done all our kind of medicine bits and procedural bits, but so how are things for you, right? Like every bit of good practice, everybody knows they should do that. Now, whether they get to it well or not well, I've heard too many terrible things when it's kind of done or not done. So I can't sort of really vouch for it, but you may have heard of something called the holistic needs assessment, right? It's supposed to be sometimes the heading isn't there. It's not like kind of quite the heading, but it's supposed to be a conversation whereby, perhaps with a nurse or a healthcare sort of support, you might go through something like a thermometer of distress. They might say, well, here's something about to get a picture of where you are with issues. So there's a thermometer of distress, and there's these topics. And you tick these boxes in the thermometer, and then you get to say, okay, what are the sort of priorities, and what are the sort of most, significant concerns for you? So the holistic needs assessment is something that's meant to happen within roughly a month or so of diagnosis. Sometimes it's not too bad. Sometimes kind of, most people, sometimes there are centers where, 60, 70, 80% kind of get some semblance of that. But, remember that, if that's a good, thing to ask for, to say to people, oh, I've heard there's this kind of holistic needs assessment thing. That would sort of, be helpful. And that's kind of the beginning where you can sort of start to name some of these things, and the professionals can start to validly have the time to attend to them because they're doing this bit of care. So that bit of the process is supposed to be holistic, not just psychological, of course, social stuff, like, of course, for people in this age range, right? Education, right? How this thing screws up their education, welfare, housing, family, fertility, sexuality, all sorts of really important things are on that form. So that's kind of sort of one way. Am I getting there? Yeah? Am I sort of getting in that direction? Anything else that you kind of, you had in mind?
I've got to add to Callum's bit. So we know that men find it a lot harder to talk about their mental health. So what tips would you give to healthcare professionals, how they bring it up with them that doesn't make them shut down again, Alex?
Oh, gosh. I think that authenticity is very important, sort of being kind of very human, right? It's a hard, be more human. It's a bit of a hard sell, right? How can you, be yourself? Yeah, but not that way. So I think the advice to healthcare professionals is to kind of, I suppose, to tap into that kind of human concern for other people that they honestly do have, and do things more like, okay, well, I'm noticing you're kind of feeling a bit off today. Yeah, like to be a little bit go off script, be a bit more personal. What else has been with you? So that, I think that kind of sort of slightly less formal, slightly less kind of, are you well? Yes, I am. Thank you, doctor. And a bit more kind of, so what's been going on with this? What's been going on with that? And, that's a hard one. But fundamentally, I think kind of reducing the sense of kind of professional to patient, being, particularly for younger people, more personable, more direct, less thinking about what's the right boundary, what's the right technique. Yeah.
Godwell, you were going to add something that it'd be interesting to know what you think
Oh, yeah,
healthcare
it was-
professionals
Yeah,
should talk.
exactly. It should be you guys saying what worked. What works for you.
So it never worked for me. From the time I got offered it, I went to one appointment and never came back. Because the whole sense of it just didn't make sense to me. I'm there in the room, I'm being sat down, so how you feeling? Nah, that's not how it works for me. Like, if you want to get to know me, you gotta talk to me. Talk to me, let me in, so I can let you in. That's how I feel like it should be. It should go. Like, again, as much as I don't speak a lot about myself, I'm a very good listener. I'm able to get people to open up to me, and if I'm capable of doing that, someone that's professional should be able to get me to open up myself, but just letting me know a bit about you. I can't know about you. I can't know your first name, last name, and now my whole story is it don't make sense. Like, I feel like it needs to be genuine. You need to
Genuine.
like build a relationship first. I feel like my advice to anyone who will do this is the first couple of sessions, build a relationship, because that's you still getting to know the patient. You're getting to know their hobbies, what they're like. Don't ask, oh, so what do you like? Just talk about it. Talk about what you like so that they get to know you as well as you get to know them. So when they see you, they're not just being so formal. It's, hi, as my friend, not, hi, I'm here for my appointment. They're excited to come and see you and speak to you, because now they feel like your advice will be so valid to their life. What you say to them can actually change the way they see things. Their mindset will be, it will grow from what they've been told. It's not a thing where it's a structured, this is the appointment we're going to have with you, and by the end of, by week 10, you'll be perfect and mentally strong, tip-top shape. Nah, it don't work like that. It's a whole relationship. You try to mend someone's emotional state, not just get them strong and let them off. Like, I feel like the way patients should be approached, you should be more, I would say sincere, because I'm not saying they ain't being sincere, but more on a, let me get to know you as you get to know me, so I can help you. You get it?
Very nice.
No. Am I right? Yeah.
I mean, ask what matters to you, right? Because if the healthcare professional asks what matters to you, then you start to build a rapport, don't you?
Yeah. Like, I've been offered how many times, and it's weird to me to be offered, do you want to speak to someone? I'll say, yeah, I'll take it, yeah, of course. And when we do talk, it's like, I can see that you really do care, but it's the thing, but am I going to see you again? Because I see them one time, I'll never see them again. Am I wrong? You'll see them that one time after the doctor sent you off to them, but you'll never see them again. And then I got someone to come to my house, a whole different person, telling me for me to repeat the same story. Oh, don't worry, we'll have a team for you. Is it a team? Oh yeah, someone else will come and talk to you. Like, how does that make sense? So I got to talk to 3 people, about the exact same thing for me to get to that one person. So I'd rather just be on my own. And I know that's not the best result you want to hear, but it happens to some people, and I'm obviously one of them, where I actually put my hand up for the support. I thought, why not for me not to be receiving it? Like, it's complicated, because I do understand that there's how many people who need the support, who need the help. I honestly do get it, but it's like, understand that I had a better relationship with my social worker, who I feel like I can speak to, than someone who can help me understand my emotions. You get it? Like,
Yeah.
Anyone else got any
Very good. We had a.
There was another, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just an observation based on what we were talking about before. Sometimes I find that when I go to appointments or people are asking me things in healthcare profession, I feel like I need to impress them, like I'm treating life like an exam still. I'm a bit of a swot anyway, but so yeah, when they ask if you want help, or you just kind of you feel like you want to say things are okay. And I don't know whether that's also a masculine thing. We were talking about that earlier, about the storyline of how you feel like you should project yourself. But anyway, that was just for everyone's benefit. My question was more practical. We were talking about approaching people that you know, about telling them about how you feel. So I had cancer when I was very young, and then another trauma when I was a bit older. So most of the people that I now meet and that are now my friends don't really know me, don't really know that person, don't really know those experiences. So it's quite tricky because I encounter quite a lot of... Sorry. I should go through it, sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. So, this happens in appointments as well. I just like trigger, it's like I can talk about it. Sorry,
So much, isn't it?
So take your time, take your time.
Sorry. You've been through a lot, George.
if anyone else has a question, we can move on.
I think what you're saying is that people don't understand what you've been through what you had as a child, so they don't know that part of you.
Yeah, and also like you meet quite a lot of people in groups, like maybe a football team or at work, or like I'm in a book club, and like I know everyone really well, but it's difficult to have a group conversation, be like, oh, hey, like I have these problems, whereas.
Can I feedback on that as well, and just to say about that feeling as well of when those those emotions come, and particularly when they come when you're not in a place where you feel like you have permission as well. And I wonder if there's a question as well moved to Alex with that, of going, what other things about this permission, like why do we feel sometimes we particularly men, if I'm to be honest, why do we feel as men we don't have permission to be emotional as much, do you think? What's on that? I don't know if you can hear me. Do you hear me? I can't hear.
Were you directing that to? We're looking
I
at
was.
I think it was G.
Oh, sorry, I was directing you.
I didn't
You,
hear the
Alex,
Alex
but it can be an open
well,
question.
you know what? I'll pass. I'll go with you guys. Jim, why don't you kind of start on that first, and then we can kind of all give it.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I think it's sort of what Alex was saying before about the having the script, and that I should be this and I should be that, and it's partly to do with that, and I think for me anyway, it's partly to do with sort of sometimes it's holding stuff in, so I can completely empathise. In my follow-up appointments, that often happens because it's sort of going back into, an environment where it was really challenging, and I did feel terrible, and both physically and mentally, and then sometimes sort of going back into that that physical environment and waiting in the same waiting room that I have done for sort of 6 years. It actually just sort of brings all those emotions back up, and those environments, I guess, can be good because it allows a vessel. It gives you permission to sort of have those emotions again, but it's sort of a double-edged sword in the fact that they're there sort of somewhere floating around, and it brings them back up to the surface. But also because of the environment that you're in. I don't think there's any judgment about having those emotions in the first place, but because you're in sort of a professional environment, there is absolutely no potential for judgment whatsoever. So it means that you can have that. You can have just that sort of emotional release where you're like, well, actually, everything's not okay, or everything is okay, but I just feel like I need to get upset for 5 minutes. Yeah.
It's a good point, isn't it, that there are kind of spaces where both the sense of kind of it's safe enough, but also it's kind of anxiety-provoking enough that they sort of come together. And I think that kind of connects with the point that there are lots of other places where those sort of components lacking, so it's very hard to present that sort of vulnerable bit to yourself, right? What do you say? So it's a really good, really, really good sort of point to raise that dilemma of, how do you raise a point about your vulnerability in a kind of context where it sort of doesn't go, yeah? It doesn't naturally appear. And I think you mentioned it before, Toby, that you said, it might come out at a time when you sort of don't really sort of want that to happen. So, often we sort of talk about that a lot, so that people are well prepared for the various kind of sort of environments and what they might sort of bring up. So it is also a function of, again, allowing yourself to be emotional in the right place that feels safe, in the right audience. And it's also okay to put the brakes on if it doesn't feel safe and if it's not the right time and not the right place. It's not invariably the case that you have to kind of, so it's very, very valid to suppress and kind of control one's emotions at the wrong place, at the wrong time, where actually it wouldn't be safe or functional for you to do so. But equally, if that's what you're always doing, clearly there's going to be one place that is safe, that is okay, right? There's going to be this one place, maybe, where it is safe and it is okay. So, displays of emotion, I don't think, are that difficult as they used to be. It's not Victorian anymore, but equally, we're all very conscious that we have to feel safe to do that. Yeah. So yeah, being selective, allowing yourself to be selective about that. Okay.
No,
Do you wanna?
No, I do agree on that. It's a difficult one because, again, I know you didn't get to finish what you were saying. I do apologize for that. And me just hearing the small gist of the concept of what you said, like, you've been in an era where you're unable to really you want to be yourself. You want people to know you the same way you know them. And I understand that may be difficult, but one thing I'll say to you now is, you just speaking of it now, it's the first step. Like, you doing what you're doing now, it's progress. I know you're feeling what you're feeling now, maybe a bit helpful, but it's good to feel what you're feeling. And now you're in an environment where people understand that it's hard, like, I don't have the best words to say, but just that this is the first step, Now that you've made this step, that you want to actually let them know what's going on. You want to, they're your friends, they're your people. Like, it's good that you have that in the first place. Understand, you already have an establishment. Now it's down to you wanting to let them know the real you. And it does take time. It's going to be painful, but after that, that's when you'll win. Like, you got to go through this pain. We've been all through it. We've been through the pain. We've really beat cancer. That's done now. There's something we can do. Like, and it's easier said than done, but like, it's the best way for me to put it. Trust me. Like, there's hardships that we will go through, and I know you meant to talk about this, but again, I don't want you to be upset. Like, it's good you're speaking. Don't, trust me. When the mic's ready, grab it again. Say what you got to say. But yeah.
Just, I'd really like to echo that as well from Godwill, of like the fact of being present seems like is the important thing, and being in this space. And I'm going to pass over to Ambo to hear your take on this as well, because I know you'll put your hand up on the lights of Zoom over here.
Sorry, and Godwill kind of, I think everyone kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to say, what a better place. Is there a better place than where you are right now to be, upset and be able to express your emotions? Again, with people that understand. And as men, not talking for everyone, but we have like a control mechanism where we like to be in control a lot, and losing control, someone said it, in the wrong place is kind of fearful. So, be emotional, and that is okay. Because, for example, my dad, who has prostate cancer. He's not emotional, and it's very hard to gauge where his head is at, what's going on, what he's thinking, because he doesn't really like to let anybody in. Just seeing and hearing that was quite refreshing, and I don't want you to take that in the wrong way, but that, when you want to discuss that again, I'm sure you'll be able to control it much better, because you've had the opportunity to let it out.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, there's something as well that echoes back to what Godwill was saying as well about these small steps forward, like that we're I think you was about the seeds and things like that. We're planting the seeds of these with our conversations, but also with ourselves, and how that allows us to slowly move this conversation forward, to mean that there are more spaces as well that men feel comfortable to be able to talk about their mental health, and to find words and find the language for those things that they might not be able to understand at that point as well. We are coming to the end of the session. I know that there might be some more questions in the space, but what we're going to draw to a close the stream, and that I know that means that there will be time afterwards for those in the space if you want to ask questions afterwards, and we'll be on here as well. But what I'd like to do, just to wrap up as well, is to go down the panel and just to hear about kind of one small snippet, small thing. That's all right. Just as that you hope that people who are watching this might take away from this evening's conversation. So I'm going to go down, going to go around the room. Amber, I might come to you first if that's all right. I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on it first. Of something you hope people who are watching that might take away from this evening.
I'd probably say an understanding that you're not alone. When sometimes you feel that you are, and there was some fantastic people on the panel today that really opened my eyes up a little bit as well, to show that there can be safe spaces, and how brave they are of just talking and having that control and being able to talk. So that was wonderful and nice to see.
Thank you. Jim, can I go to you next?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I sort of lost my train of thought for a second.
That is okay, yeah.
I got stage fright.
No, it's right. Of something that you, like a little snippet of something that you hope that people will take away if they're watching from seeing this evening's conversation.
I think the hope that I've got is that this discussion continues, and that, here as part of Trekstock, but also out of that, we can build upon. I think we've talked about before how mental health with men has changed over the last few years, and definitely things have started opening up. And I see tonight as a part of that development, and really moving forward, that's, all that I can hope for is that we continue talking, and more people start talking about the way they're feeling, whether you have cancer or whether you don't have cancer, and that it becomes socially acceptable to do that, obviously in the right place or the right time, or who you feel comfortable with. And really just, I hope that people carry on that discussion.
Thank you. Alex, over to you.
You kind of both mentioned something about sort of being kind to yourself, and sort of, I suppose, hopefully people take away the story that it might take quite a long time to sort of figure out what you're thinking and feeling, that it might take a long time to sort of find help. It might be quite a journey to sort of realize things. But it is kind of how it is. The fact that you're not sort of got it all sorted isn't necessarily, it's part of the process, right? That it is a long process for both of you. So really struck by those stories. Long process of realization and kind of piecing lots of things together. So, at any one point in the story, you're not going to feel kind of okay about it. So hopefully take away the idea of a kind of a long journey that might be in some way relieving you of the pressure of sort of getting it right. Of course, on the other hand, I'm sure you'd want to take away the message that there is a particular solution, that we can sort of pronounce, and there isn't. We heard lots of kind of small solutions, very personal, lots of little sort of small things, but hopefully taking away the idea of a kind of a journey that takes time of sort of realizing and processing these experiences.
Will, over to you.
Yeah, as you just said, it's a journey. That's the best way I can put it. Just keep it short and quick. It's just a journey that you have to go through. Just understand, loving yourself is something you're not told enough to do. Love yourself. Like, that's the best way for you to overcome this. And once you do that, you'll be able to accept what comes with everything else. That's when you'll be just tell your story the way you feel fit, because you love yourself, you know? Would it be a pain talking about it no more because you accepted the past? The past doesn't need to be so present no more, you know? Just accept it for what it is and enjoy the life we're living today, you know? Yeah.
Thank you, God, Will. Yeah, and to mention as well, as we come to the end of this evening's conversation, obviously, if there are things that you want to look deeper into, there's lots of resources on the TrekStock website. There's lots of different, there's videos, there's resources that might point you towards working with cancer, about being kind to your mind. Also, Afterthoughts, the podcast, which God Will is going to be on Series 5. So you're hearing more. There you are, that's a little plug for that as well, isn't it? And yes, there's plenty of resources for things. If today has started that of going, actually, I would like to start thinking about this, or you've noticed something, it can start with a cup of tea with a friend, or it can start with a cup of tea with yourself, really, as well. So before I pass back to Jemima, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I think it is, as we've really noticed over the last hour or so, that's the first step, and there's something really great about showing up, and there's a curiosity that we've had in this room about what's going on and how can we support ourselves and others. So thank you so much for all of you being here. Thank you so much to our panel for coming and for being present, and both for calling in, and to the team, like to Godwill, to Jim, and to Alex, like for being there, and to TrekStock for holding this conversation, as we know it's really important. We've really felt that this evening as well. The more spaces we can have to talk about this, the better. So back over to you, Jemima. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Toby. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for holding space so brilliantly, and hope you feel better, dude. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As this is only the start, we lifted the lid this evening, and may we continue to have conversations. May you continue to know it's okay not to be okay, and that you matter, and how you feel matters, and get talking with your mates, and let's make sure that shame when it comes to men's mental health is banished from our generation. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the things and the ways that we can support your mental health in the coming weeks. If you're in Glasgow online, we've got Saturday the 14th of May, we've got mini golf. In Bath, we've got meet and paddle on the 21st of May. In Newcastle, we've got on the 18th of June, a lovely walk. If you're struggling with work or not enjoying the job that you're doing, we've got Find the Job You Love workshop online on the 16th of May. And we've also got on the 7th of May, coming up, we've got Trek This City, and we'd love you all to join us to raise awareness of TrekStock and raise vital funds to be able to change the game for more young people living with and beyond cancer. Thank you so much for joining tonight. It's wonderful to have you here. Good night.